Tetris needs no introduction. It's one of the best-selling video game franchises of all time, and currently holds the world record for the most widely available title. In spite of being inescapable, few discuss the true story of how Tetris came to be though. The tale most recite is near folklore at this point, and does hold true for the most part. But as you'll soon discover, the devil is in the details. The account as most know it begins with a man named Alexey Pajitnov. Working as a software engineer under the Soviet Union, the tile matcher was conceived with the simple intent of testing newly released computers. However, it was so addictive that it quickly spread like wildfire across the country and later the world. Upon it blowing up, tense business negotiations started due to the nature of its creation. You see, having been invented under communism, this meant that the state officially owned all rights to the idea, and as a result, Alexey would see none of its profits until the Union's fall, at which point he founded the Tetris Company. Nowadays, this business maintains full rights to the block stacking game worldwide, and have long since made up for the estimated $40 million he missed out on before Gorbachev tore down the wall. This is no doubt a compelling story on its own, and in many ways was emblematic of a classic rags to riches narrative. The pro-capitalism slant also didn't hurt its spread either. However, it glosses over just how difficult that decade without royalties was.
Tetris. It was quite simply the most addictive and universally accessible puzzle video game of the 80s and 90s, and it still holds its own today amongst the glut of puzzle games that exist now. Since it was unleashed in the world in the mid-1980s, it has appeared on countless computer machines and video game consoles. It was even the pack-in title for the Nintendo Game Boy when it released in 1989. Both Nintendo and Tetris were two of the most influential forces in all of video gaming in the late 80s, so it made sense that the two would combine forces to make Tetris a Nintendo console exclusive. Nintendo purchased the rights to license the game for its line of video game systems and began development of both NES and portable Game Boy versions at the same time. Atari, who had been releasing unlicensed video games for the NES under their Tengen moniker in order to circumvent Nintendo's strict licensing practices, developed their own version of Tetris, which released to stores in May of 1989. Due to it being available roughly half a year before the licensed Nintendo version, it enjoyed a few months of success as the sole NES Tetris game. Nintendo quickly caught wind of this and took Atari to court over the matter. Both companies believed they owned the license to Tetris, but the court ruled that Nintendo was the sole owner of the license. As a result of this, Atari was ordered to recall any stock of the game on store shelves and in warehouses. Legend has that Atari destroyed roughly 300,000 Tetris game packs. Not surprisingly, debates still occur as to which NES version of Tetris is better overall. Were owners of one version shortchanged by not having access to, or even knowing about the other version?
So you got this cool side art of basically the Kremlin, I suppose, or something like it. I've got some statues. I'm not up on my Russian. I don't really know what that is supposed to symbolize. You got this sweet bezel. There was a cabaret version of this, if you've ever seen it. It's a shorter one. Very cool. There was only 150 of them made. So it's the only dedicated Tetris arcade games that were ever released. This is, of course, a kit in the upright. Alright, so let's read over the instructions, then we're going to play it a little bit. Enough talking. Okay, so notice on the thing there is no up on the joystick because you can't do anything. You can't go up in Tetris, but you can go left, right, or drop. Objective: fit pieces together to build horizontal lines. Move and rotate pieces using the joystick and buttons. When a solid line is completed, it will disappear. Second player can join in at any time. We'll talk about that here in a second. Try to avoid leaving any holes in between pieces. Game ends when the block pieces stack to the top of the screen. Right? Okay, so it says second player can join in anytime. That was a big deal for operators. They loved that crap. Up until about 87, there may be a couple of There may be, or 88, around this time. There may be, you know what, Gauntlet was different, which is also Atari. Anyway, there's just a few examples, before Gauntlet at least, of arcade games where you could join in at any time. Usually, if somebody was playing it, you had to wait till they end their game, and then you could come up and you could start a two-player game if you want to play with them, or start another one-player game, etc. To an operator, though, that's really screwed up, because you're losing money the whole time that's going on. So along comes Gauntlet. Gauntlet, you can join in at any time. 4 freaking people can play it. Later on, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was awesome for this. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we'll use that one. 4 people can play. You can join in at any time. Think of the damn money, if you're an operator, that you can earn from this thing. People can walk up when the guy's on the last board and put their money in and start losing quicker than ever because they're on the last board and it's harder. But they want to play it because it's exciting that you're on the last board and blah, blah, blah. And 4 different people can do it at the same time. So to an operator, that was very attractive, because you had the potential to make a fortune, just a ton of money. So this one, they went out of their way to design it so that 2 people can play and the second player can join in at any time. Very smart design. So, enough talking. Let me get the tripod. We'll set it up. We'll play it a little bit. If you've played the home version, the Atari home version, then you've already played it. But we'll see what the differences are. I maybe should have mentioned that before the Atari arcade version, there were computer versions too, but I've never played most of those, so I don't know much about them. See it down at the bottom, it says 1988 Atari games. Okay, so we're going to play it a little bit. Easy, medium, or hard. Let's start with easy. Rotate and place pieces to fill lines. Great. One line filled. Filled line disappears and other lines drop. Your goal is to fill lines. All right.
Tetris, one of the most important games that ever got created. And it came out of Russia in 1984. That's at the height of the Cold War, when relations between the US and Russia weren't exactly what you would call good. I had the wonderful opportunity of judging here at the Imagine Cup with the creator of Tetris, and then I got some time to sit down and hear more about the story. One of the great pleasures about being out here in Russia for Imagine Cup is the opportunity to meet a man who affected my life quite greatly, Alexey Pajitnov, the creator of Tetris. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me here.
So I kind of want to get a sense of the story and sort of your take on it. 1984, Tetris comes out in Russia, which is then this part of the Soviet Union. What was just the process of you developing that game? There was not a game industry in Russia at that time.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't a game industry at all, and nobody produced or developed any game on purpose. So, so basically, I did it on my spare time, and I was just a programmer in Computer Center of Academy of Science, and well, I have some excuse because we had a lot of hardware and we need to check it somehow. So small program is a very good thing to check the hardware. So I wrote several small games, and Tetris was just one of them.
So did you even expect other people to play it, or is it was in your mind you were just doing something to test out the hardware you had?
To be frank, yes. I really enjoyed the game when I coded and prototype, and I was desperate to start to play myself, but yes, I did suppose that somebody will put the hand on it too.
Now, what was your awareness of the game industry in America and Western Europe at that time? There was Atari, there just had been Atari.
We knew about the computers. We've heard even about the video consoles. Very first one, and we definitely saw the game on first PC arriving to the country. So So I played Qbert, I played Pac-Man. I really enjoy Load Runner. That was my favorite game that time. A little bit later, by the way, yeah. But anyway, so we had some idea about the games and how it works and how enjoyable they are. And my feeling about Tetris was that it's a good game. I could compare it with Pac-Man and other stuff. And I realized that it's not worse. I didn't expect it to be that.
Now, you first released it in Russia. I mean, how was that distributed? Obviously,
Yeah, so the only way of the software distribution that time was just unauthorized copying. So whatever software was created, it's immediately kind of spread to everybody who needs it. And well, when you say release, it's just give the floppy disk to your friend. That's it. That's all you need to do.
I mean, how many computers were there in Russia at the time? And did anyone have it in their home?
No, little bit later, but that time no. They were awfully expensive. They were kind of the most fashionable car price, something like that. So it's hard to say how much were they because it was very dynamic. The first come, but right away the next big portion comes. So people realize that it's extremely profitable to trade the software, the hardware and software as well. So basically it increased rapidly. It changed in 10 times during the year or something.
So 1986, I believe, it starts to emerge, it starts to move westward and find its way to America. What was that process like for you, and were you aware of how popular it was suddenly becoming in the United States?
Well, not really. It happens, yeah, it happens a little bit later, but first an authorized copy came there and we got some small feedback on that. But the first time the game was published on PC in 87, I believe.
Okay.
Yes, and then well, we see the magazines with the advertisement. We've heard about some rewards on some kind of small contests, but I didn't have clear impression that this is a kind of hit or something like that.
Well, and then comes 1989, and someone's coming, from the United States here to get licensing for the Nintendo Game Boy. And at that point, were you aware that this was about to become a very, very big deal?
Yeah, at that time we realized because we were shown lots of rewards and lots of buzz and lots of advertisements. So we realized that that's the game. That's something stable on the market already. And we really looked forward to the other platforms because original deal for PC we didn't like too much. So it was very first time we get a negotiation and we didn't do it very well, and so we expect to compensate ourselves on handhelds and video games as well, and arcade machines. So all the platforms.
So what is it in your mind? I have my theories, but I would love to hear it from you. Why that game works so well with so many people? There are people who love Tetris that would never call themselves a gamer.
Yeah. Well, there is no one reason for that, but usually people notice several pretty important reasons. One of them, the game is simple. You don't need to be hardcore player to start and keep going with it. So, and this is important. That's why, and people feel it and don't scared to try. And that's very, very important factor. The other one is that, well, it's kind of peaceful game with the abstract content. During my later professional career, I realized that whatever kind of thick character or environment you decorate your game, it will be X amount, 20% of people who just love your game. But it will be 25% of the people who will hate your game because of this style, because they just don't accept the style. With abstract content, there is nobody who fall in love with it. But nobody hates it. That's why it has a really, really broad appeal, and that's also very important for Tetris to get in its position.
Now, obviously, Tetris is also it's on a lot of mobile devices now. We're in this new world of phones and tablets and everything like that. Been very, very, very successful, and I think with that in mind, Tetris really was the first kind of mobile casual game, something with that broad appeal. I mean, do you sort of look at what's happening on phones and tablets now, and you think to yourself, that's because of me. I started all of this.
Oh yeah, yeah. My first shock was in Kyoto in '90 when I saw kind of all the shipment for for Game Boy. Well, we say 100,000, couple 100,000, but when you actually see those 100,000 by your eyes, that make you proud, you know.
Gentlemen, if you want to sell a couple 100,000 Game Boys to little kids, package them with Mario. But if you want to sell millions to absolutely everyone around the world, package them with Tetris.
Tetris.
It's the perfect game. It's an extraordinary story involving lots of different factions from all over the world, all pursuing this incredibly hot property. This game is poetry, art and math, all working in magical synchronicity. My character, Henk, is a publisher of games who sets about on this kind of mad dash to secure the rights to Tetris. Where? Russia.
There's this one man in the USSR who's made this thing that everyone wants.
Alexey is the designer. He designed the game. Because of the laws in Russia at the time, he is denied the right to earn any money from his game. It kind of becomes the property of the state. But Henk kind of storms into his life.
Henk was the first man in Russia to whom you can talk about computers.
I'm gonna make you a millionaire.
I do not have right to receive money from my game.
That's criminal.
No. It is communism.
Have you ever negotiated with the Soviets, Mr. Rogers? Do you know what it feels like to be in a country where everyone is watching you?
Go home. Understood?
How do you get the game out of Russia when everything's chaos there?
This is an illegal copy.
He thinks I stole Tetris?
Affirmative.
These were true visionaries that broke the rules to make the world better. It's an unknown story about a very well-known game.
Henk hits a number of wars trying to smuggle the rights of Tetris out of the USSR. One of those blockades being the Maxwells. Kevin Maxwell, CEO of Microsoft.
Fantastic. I would like to buy your worldwide handheld rights.
We'll consider your offer, Mr. Rogers.
I haven't made one yet.
Yes.
It's exciting, it's thrilling, it's based on reality. It's just a lot of fun.
Not so often I can see the movie when I read the screenplay, but this one was brilliant.
Get me Tetris.
It's about companionship and friendship, and that these two kindred spirits, capitalist and communist, have kind of come together.
My dad put everything on the line to chase after this game. Most people have no idea the drama that the game went through for it to spread to the rest of the world. I think some people will feel nostalgic. Tetris has connection with this desire that all human beings have to create something, to build something, to put everything in order.
This phrase, falling blocks, it's about love. Doesn't matter where you're from, if you're inspired by what you're doing, there are no barriers.
Tetris is a cultural zeitgeist, and it's quite exciting to think that the backstory to this phenomenon will finally get its moment in the sunlight.
obviously, like the rest of the planet, I love Tetris, and I thought this movie was so well done. I'm really happy to talk to you guys. So I guess my first question is going to be the most important. I am curious for the two of you, what level can you actually get to on the Game Boy in Tetris?
You don't have any Tetris item behind you.
They told me I couldn't do that.
I see. Okay, so I saw the rocket launch once in Game Boy version.
You mean the shuttle?
Shuttle, yeah.
The shuttle is the last.
The last, yes, yeah. I did it once. Yeah, that's my level with the Game Boy.
I can pretty much get the shuttle to come out whenever I want.
Obviously, Tetris has been released on many different, and it's been released on every console, mobile, every format. Do you guys actually have a favorite version that you like to play, whether it be on the Nintendo or in the arcade? I'm just curious.
My personal preference is always the computer. I like those buttons because I did play a lot while I developed the game and debug it, and the first 5 years of my life with the game was related to computer. So my preferable kind of interface is computer. So I like every computer version. What about you?
Yeah, so I like the Game Boy version. It's sort of the classic Tetris. It became the classic Tetris. When people look back on the history of Tetris, they think that's the first Tetris, but actually there was a bunch of them before. So Game Boy is good. It's not often that I get to work on a game myself. And there was a certain point where I was licensing Tetris to other companies, and we wanted to create an example of this is Tetris, beat that. And so we created a version called Tetris Zone, but it wasn't like released because it was just an internal product. It was just to show the other licensees how, and so I got to have lots of my ideas. I think that's what we did T-Spin for the first time.
Yeah, but that's kind of individual long-term play. As far as game experience is concerned, I am really excited about Tetris 99. It's absolutely great experience for kind of the sentimental part, you know.
I think the most creative version of Tetris, he's talking about gameplay, which is of course important, but there's Tetris Effect, the Tetris Effect, which is made by multimedia genius. That's a VR Tetris, and I don't know if it's where it's been released. It must be released everywhere.
Yeah,
it's like
I played it on computer
on PlayStation. No,
it is PlayStation version as well, but I do remember my experience is on computer. Anyway,
Alexey, you have created a number of other games besides Tetris. And I'm curious, if someone has not played any of the other things you've created, what's the one or two other games you think they should check out?
Well, I'm not sure it's available now, but the game I'm really proud of is Pandora's Box. It's a big title I came out while I work at Microsoft. I try to bring the puzzle spirit in the world, and I kind of invent in my mind. I invent the new type of the puzzles, the visual puzzles, which I really emphasize in this title, and it was pretty good title. I'm always ahead of time, unfortunately. All my titles are a little bit more original than it should be at the time. So I don't see very big response while I came up with the game, and I see my game being ripped off 5, 6, 7 years after my first release. That's what's happening most of my career. So Pandora's box is important item. Hexic is pretty good game. Not the best realization, but the game itself has a big meaning inside it. It's kind of my vision on kind of bejeweled mechanics. I would put it this way.
I definitely want to jump into the movie. I can't imagine what it was like for the two of you watching this on the screen for the first time. So I just want to know, what was it like sitting in that theater and taking it in, because I just can't imagine.
Well, for me, I remember I cried several times during the movie, and I don't cry easily, but I was moved. You know, there was the bit where I come home, or my wife comes home with my daughter, and she has to sing. Oh my gosh, that was so touching. Yeah, how can you not cry during that scene? But yeah, I was blown away by the movie. It's a movie. Sure. It's not a documentary. It's a movie. It's a story, and you want to call it a thriller on steroids, whatever you want to call it. It's a movie. It's a real movie.
Yeah. Yes, and I feel very proud of my game, you know. This is a movie about Tetris, and the fact that they take the most important moment of the business life of my game is so touching for me. So finally the very small kind of stuff which takes couple moments of your time, now it's on the screen, it's in a big culture. That make me really proud.
I'm curious, what do you think audiences, when they see the movie, will in the film, will think is like Hollywood make-believe magic, but actually really happened?
It's I guess there's not many people who had a movie made about their life while they're still alive. You know, so yes, there were things that happened. Yes, there were things that happened in the movie that, you know, they took artistic license. But there are things that they left that they couldn't fit into the movie that would have been the equivalent. So what they did is take a year and a half of my life, squeeze it into 2 hours, and get the point across. And I think they did that wonderfully.
One of the things that I was so surprised at is you managed to do, or Elorg only licensed the game for 10 years. And I'm just curious, how did you pull this off in terms of only letting, you know, the 10-year license? I'm sure that more companies were asking, we want more than 10 years.
Yeah, no. So in the business, nobody has a spreadsheet that lasts more than 10 years. Nobody thinks that far into the future. So when we were sitting in that room negotiating, that it was Nintendo was in the room, I was in the room, Alexey was in the room, and we're all negotiating, and they're going to have a big fight with Atari Games. They needed right of title going back to the author, and they created this documentation going all the way back to Alexey, and they made it for a period of 10 years because nobody thought it was going to be an issue after 10 years. You know, that they thought it would be gone by then. Nobody had that understanding, that it would last long or be even growing after that. So yeah, we were pretty lucky in that. So in '95, the rights reverted. I had a big battle with Elorg for about a year, and we finally settled and made the Tetris Company.
Yeah, it is true though that generally speaking, it's very, very, very few games that are still being played 10 years after. You have to be something special.
Yes.
And I'm wondering why. I mean, the game is very software product, but it's still very psychological stuff. The software and hardware change, but our brain remain the same. And what brings you lots of pleasure, keep bringing it to you and other human beings. So that's why I never expect Tetris to be gone, because it's a really good game, you know. Why why you don't come back to it? So it's still big mystery for me why several really great games are gone already. I mean they will come back, I'm pretty sure.
Listen, I don't have an answer except to say that when I was preparing to talk to the two of you, I went to the Tetris website and they have the game on the homepage, and I then started playing, and the next thing you know, I'm sitting there for 20 minutes playing the game. It's like a you know, but actually I want to ask you guys, I believe next year is the 40th anniversary of the game, and I wanted to know if you guys are planning anything special.
Well, we work on the brand really hard, and probably we will have the good version, the updated version coming out on several platforms.
Yeah, my daughter Maya is in charge of running things now, and I'm sure she's cooking really hard. You know, I've sort of backed off the business end of it. She's smarter than I am, so she knows what she's doing, and I'm sure she's got something really great happening next year.
Henk, you are known for being able to talk your way in and out of situations. And I'm curious, what's a situation that you talked your way in or out of that you still can't believe you did it?
Oh my goodness. No, this is, I mean, the movie is that. It's the one, what's the other situation? Oh my gosh, my first meeting with Yamauchi. I went to Nintendo after my wife read an article that Yamauchi plays Go, and I talked myself into becoming a publisher in like half an hour. You know, it's wow.
Well, do you think also back then though, I believe this must have been the 80s, it must have been just a completely different world in the video game industry versus what it is now. It was such the infancy of the whole market.
Yeah, when you think about the history, I started my first company by writing a role-playing game by myself, did all the graphics, did all the story, did all the programming, did all the marketing, did all the sales. I mean, I pretty much did everything. And you could do that back then. Today, it's like to do that same kind of thing, a team of 100 people, if not more. It's just unthinkable. But it's looking back on it, it was in a very exciting time. It was new territory for everybody that was in that business.
Alexey, you obviously, it was a while before you got a first royalty check. And I just want to know, what was it like when you finally got paid for creating this game? And what was the present that you bought yourself when you could finally afford it?
Well, you know, I could barely remember those shift to payments because what Tetris brought to me that time is kind of recognition, and I had lots of other titles at that time, so I started receiving my payments for my other titles, and Tetris payments kind of embedded in all this flow. So Tetris made me happy and successful by glory at the first step and with the funds.
What's the first thing that you bought? What was the first thing that you bought? Saying like, now I have enough money is coming in, I buy something. Yeah. He doesn't really buy a lot of stuff. Clothes, no, I had to twist his arm to buy clothes.
Yeah. I do remember that it was a very successful year, and I tried to finally buy myself hand watch, and I decided I won't even look at the price. I will take the item I really love. Believe it or not, I bought $100 Seiko watch. Nothing. So I'm not very good spender. I would
put it this way.
On that note, I really want to say a sincere congrats on the movie and thank you for the creation of the game. You guys have a fantastic day.